Absolute value notes. Absolute value is a function where the variable is inside two vertical lines. Basically, anything inside those two vertical lines always has to come out positive. So the absolute value of x is simply x. Examples of this would be the absolute value of 5 is 5. The absolute value of negative 5 is also 5. The absolute value of 0 is 0. The absolute value of negative 17 plus 3, if there's something inside the absolute value that you have to do, you do that first. So negative 17 plus 3 is negative 14. But then we'd make it the absolute value, which is positive 14. You can think of the absolute value as kind of like a shower. That anything that's inside here comes out clean or positive. And if you go inside, if you take a shower and you're positive to begin with, you're still positive at the end. So anything inside these two lines ends up being positive. Now, we'll also be solving equations like this, where we say the absolute value of x is equal to 5. Well, there's two numbers that I could put in the absolute value that would give me an answer of 5. One of them is just 5, and the other one is negative 5. So the answer to this question is actually 5 and negative 5. So to solve this equation using algebra, what we would do is set the stuff inside the absolute value equal to 5 and then equal to negative 5. And those are our two answers. Now, we can graph absolute value functions like this using a table. So what we would do is plug in negative 2 in for x. So it'd be negative 2 minus 2, which is negative 4. But since that's inside the absolute value, that's actually 4. And 4 plus 1 is 5. You could take negative 1, plug it in for x. It'd be negative 1 minus 2, which is negative 3. But that's inside the absolute value, so it turns positive 3, plus 1 is 4. I can plug a 0 in. 0 minus 2 is negative 2, but since it's inside the absolute value, it becomes positive 2, plus 1 is 3. I could plug a 1 in. 1 minus 2 is negative 1, but since it's in the absolute value, that's positive 1, plus 1 is 2. I could plug in a 2. 2 minus 2 is 0. The absolute value of 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. And then I could plug in a 3. 3 minus 2 is 1, and the absolute value of 1 is just 1, and 1 plus 1 is 2. And I could plug in a 4. 4 minus 2 is 2, and the absolute value of 2 is 2, plus 1 is 3. Now I could graph these, so negative 2, 5, negative 2, 5, negative 1, 4, 0, 3, 1, 2, 2, 1, 3, 2, and 4, 3. You'll notice that an absolute value graph makes a V. So it's kind of like a parabola, but instead of a U, it's a V. Now, solving absolute value equations, all we have to do is follow these simple steps. Isolate the absolute value first. Like in this question, the absolute value is already isolated. It means that the only thing on this side of the equation is the absolute value. This one is not isolated yet because I have this 2 and the minus 6. So if I was going to do number 1, isolate the absolute value, I would get rid of this 2 and this 6. I would add 6 to both sides. Divide both sides by 2. And now I've isolated the absolute value, which means the absolute value is the only thing on this side of the equal sign. Now, we set the inside of the absolute value equal to the number on the other side and solve for x. So I set 2x minus 3 equal to 11, and I solve it. So I'd add 3 to both sides. I'd get 2x equals 14. Divide both sides by 2. I'd get x is 7. I would do the same thing on this one. X plus 4 equals 3. I would subtract 4 from both sides. I'd get x is negative 1. But now I also have to do number 3. Set the inside of the absolute value equal to the opposite of the other side and solve for x. So I would take 2x minus 3 and set it equal to negative 11 as well. Because this stuff inside the absolute value could be positive 11 or negative 11 to get me this answer. So now I'd add 3 to both sides. I get 2x equals negative 8. Divide by 2, I get x is negative 4. Same thing over here. I set x plus 4 equal to 3, but I also have to set x plus 4 equal to negative 3. So I subtract 4 from both sides, I get x is negative 7. So absolute value equations always have two answers, a positive answer and a negative answer.